David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. Over the years, Italian retailer Stilo Stile has produced a large number of high-quality, limited edition retailer exclusive offerings. They have produced some of my favorite retailer exclusives, especially with Leonardo. There was the Cometa, and then there was the Prisma, which was a big inspiration for one of my projects. Today, I have to share with you their latest collaboration, which again is with Leonardo, and is simply called the Micarta. A while back, they produced a Micarta version of the Momemto Zero. This time around, they have upped things a bit, and this one is a Momemto Zero Grande, or MZG as it's known colloquially. There are actually two different versions, one with a number 6 stainless steel nib and another with a number 8 titanium nib. And as you can see, the Micarta material is colored slightly different between the two models. The steel nib version is a bit darker brown, and the titanium material is a little bit more of a reddish brown. We'll talk price near the end of the review, but I feel that both of these models are very reasonably priced for what you receive. What I'm going to do today is go over the parts and features of this offering, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for about it. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. A big thanks go out to Stilo Stile for providing this pen for review. Okay, in order to take a closer look at this pen and see which of the two versions I have in my possession, please join me over here at camera 2. Now, before we get started, on a side note, I will be attending the upcoming DC Pen Show at the end of this month. As I have done the last couple of years, I will be giving a seminar. I believe that it'll be at 1 p.m. on Saturday. If you would care to attend, I would suggest you getting there a little bit early as the room can fill up. This year, I'm going to be doing some Q&A, and there might be a few giveaways. And then traditionally, I've started my seminars with a magic trick. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'd love to see you there. It is completely free with your admission to the show. In regard to this pen, it arrives in this standard Momemto Zero Grande box. I do like it when a box has a custom sleeve on it. And this custom sleeve, it might be difficult to see, is just all of the Micarta rods. So it's just the rods of Micarta, a picture of those. And I just think that's interesting. And it also makes it just feel that much more special when you receive a special edition pen and it has something than just a normal standard box. But inside here, we have the actual box. And inside, we have a couple of things. We have the standard use and care guide with some pictures and information. And then we have the pen. This is the Leonardo Momemto Zero Grande Micarta. Now, I've always been a big fan of Micarta. Back in the day, there was a TWSBI Micarta that I always wanted to get my hands on, but apparently the model was kind of fraught with issues, which is why it was discontinued. I have a few other pens which incorporate Micarta, and I'll share them during the size comparisons, but like I said, I'm a big fan of the material. Micarta is actually made from canvas, which is kind of soaked in resin and then baked and pressed into rods. The look and patterning on every pen is going to be a little bit different and kind of vary slightly. Not drastically, but each pen is going to have its own subtle personality. Over the years, the material might even change colors slightly from the exposure to light, or even from the oils in your hand, because there is some of that canvas which is exposed in here. That's not guaranteed, but certainly is a possibility for things to kind of change a little bit over time. Properties of Micarta can even vary between manufacturers. And due to the specific nature of this material, there is a potential risk of staining if any of this comes in contact with ink, which I'll go over in a little bit. But in regard to the parts and features of this pen, this is a standard Momemto Zero Grande model. It does come to that rounded point, and that transitions into a rather short wheeled clip. As I've mentioned many times, I'm a big fan of wheeled clips. This one has a slight bow to it, but it really works well in materials of varying thicknesses. The cap angles up and then straightens out about over the last inch or so. There's a few different transitions between the cap and the barrel for Leonardo pens. And of them, I mean, this isn't terrible, but of them, this is we'll say my least favorite, the step down. There's one that's a little bit more rounded and tapered that I care for a little bit more. But this one looks nice as well. And this forward portion of the step down is actually on the cap, as you can see. So the barrel actually starts at the ring. So this portion here is just a little bit of a forward transition, so to speak. And then it almost immediately tapers down at a fairly even rate of decline. And then we have another silver ring. And this is the piston knob. And on the end, again, it comes to a rounded point. The cap twists off with 1.5 rotations. And underneath, we have a standard JoWo number 6 nib. Now, I did say that there is 2 versions of this particular pen. That there is one version which has the standard number 6 JoWo nib, and then there is another version which actually has a number 8 titanium nib. And that's just a bit of an interesting feature to have on this particular pen. These are limited editions. I believe there were 50 or 55 of the steel versions and only 15 of the titanium versions. And as I showed earlier, that the ones that were steel were a little bit darker brown, and the titanium material is a little bit more reddish brown. But I do like the Stilo Stile logo, which is that circle. It's really subtle there. It's hard to get a good look at it. There you go. And then there's a look at the plastic feed. The beginning of the section is flared, and then it angles up until you reach the cap threads, which aren't sharp at all, and then a medium-sized step up to the remainder of the barrel. The engraving on this pen is here on the section. Again, it's a little hard to see, but it does say Leonardo and Stilo Stile. I would normally say that I'm not a huge fan of that, especially since that is almost exactly where you end up putting your grip. But this engraving is so shallow that you really don't even feel it, and I don't even feel it at all. If I just picked this up and was using it, then I would not be able to tell that there is engraving on there unless I knew it was there. So if you're going to put engraving on the section like that, I guess they did it in the best way possible. This pen does have a decent balance to it, and I always just like the warmth of this micarta material. It's just a bit of a different feeling on your hand as opposed to like a resin or something like that, or even an ebonite. And it does feel very nice. This pen does post, and it does post securely, though I do care for the look of it a little bit better when it is unposted. This is a piston filling pen. It is inked right now, so I'm not going to go ahead and twist this, but it does have a nice piston mechanism that is solid and smooth, and it holds a decent amount of ink in here. Okay, in regard to price, I'll put a link below to where you can find this pen on the Stilo Stile website, but the stainless steel version is currently selling for 213 euros, which equates to about $250 with the conversion rate. And then for the titanium version, or titanium nib version, it's about 375, which is 323 euros. Especially for 250 with the conversion rate for a Momemto Zero Grande, I feel that that is an excellent price for this particular offering. I do enjoy the Momemto Zero Grande size. It's just a little bit larger, which I enjoy. And I really enjoy that this is a bit of a different material with this micarta, one that I do care for. So let's go ahead and take a look at some measurements, and then we'll come back with some size comparisons and then a writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Leonardo and Stilo Stile Momemto Zero Grande micarta. I mentioned that Stilo and Stile had come out with a standard Momemto Zero in Micarta, and this is what that looks like, so you can see the difference. And then also I had mentioned this was a little bit darker than the other version, the titanium nib version, but it's a little bit darker than this. So Micarta can have a number of different color elements to it. This is another pen which uses micarta, but this one is coated, so you don't necessarily get, I know it's really shiny in here, but this one is coated, so you don't necessarily get that feeling on that pen. But it is nice. This is from Monty Winfield, and this is called the High Water. One of the things I really liked about this is carbon fiber as well that is hand spun. And Monty Winfield just makes some great pens. And then it also has one of my favorite sections. If I ever do a video, I think I did do a video on my favorite sections, and this certainly made the list, that it's done with some jeweler tools, and I just really enjoyed that on this particular pen. But that's what it looks like in comparison. And then here's what it looks like with a Pilot Vanishing Point. In regard to some of the other Stilo and Stile exclusive offerings from Leonardo, here are some of my favorites. This was the Cometa, and then here we had the Prisma, and here is the Kintsugi. This one just had the gold flakes in there, and that was actual gold that's in that material. And then here is the Andromeda, which really has a look of deep space to it. And then finally, here was a partner to the Andromeda, which was the Via Latea, which again had to deal with some outer space elements, which were nice. In regard to uncapped comparisons, this is what it looks like with the standard Momemto Zero, and then this is with the Monty Winfield, and then this is with the Momemto Zero Prisma. And you can see the Prisma is even a little bit shorter than this particular Momemto Zero. So sometimes there can be some variations in the Momemto Zero models. So here we go with the writing sample for the Leonardo. We'll say Stilo and Stile. Momemto Zero Grande Micarta. And this is a broad stainless steel nib. And the ink I'm using is one of my favorites, which is Diamine Communication Breakdown. This is what the ink looks like. It's kind of a nice pomegranate shade of red with a little bit of golden sheen to it. Here, this is what it looks like with Levenger's pomegranate, which was a little bit on the darker side. And then here it is with Diamine's Oxblood. This is what the bottle looks like, the 80 milliliter Diamine bottle. While Diamine is an English company, this was part of a series which was offered by a German retailer, which was their rock and roll series. I'm a big fan of Led Zeppelin, and I'm a big fan of this ink. I love the color, and then the fact that it's named after a Led Zeppelin song made it an ink that I couldn't refuse. And here we go with the rest of the writing sample. I'm a big fan of this broad nib. You're not going to get a lot of line variation out of here, but I will say lately I have really been leaning more towards broad nibs that are very smooth and lay down a decent amount of ink. In regard to reverse writing, it does a decent job. It's not too scratchy. And then in regard to some fast writing, the feet keeps up very well. So There we have the Leonardo and Stilo Stile Momemto Zero Grande Micarta. Again, I'll go ahead and put the link in the notes below where you can find it on the Stilo Stile site. It is very limited, so I would encourage you to take a look at it sooner rather than later. But if for some reason it's sold out, then it's a really good indication that you need to follow Stilo Stile on their social media, because they will announce the pens that they have when they do collaborations like this on their social media. And as I mentioned, they tend to go in just a couple of days. So it's better to know about them, and to, especially if it's something that you might be interested in, because like I said, they do an awesome job with their collaborations. Okay, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.